Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be providing my review of John Jackson Miller's Kenobi, which is one of the final books released in the expanded universe. It just recently became a part of the Essential Legends collection, and it is getting very popular at the moment as we have the new TV show about Obi-Wan Kenobi coming out on Disney Plus this May. And so because of that, because of the podcast that I'm on, Two Sons of Tatooine, I decided to reread this book and with my co-hosts on there. And also I thought I'd do a quick review for my channel as well. If you've watched previous Star Wars videos from me, you probably already know what I think about this book. I'll just go ahead and say it. This is my favorite Star Wars book of all time. I love this book. This is my 5th read-through of the book just now, and I reread it once every year-ish. Sometimes it's every 2 years, but about every year-ish, and I love it. So I'll go into some of the more spoiler-free things in the first half of this video, and then in the second half of the video, I'll go into my spoiler reasons. I don't talk about spoilers much, but because of how long this book's been out, and also because of some of the things I love so much that I can't talk about without spoilers, I thought I'd split it up and see how it goes. So if you want spoiler-free, the first half will be spoiler-free, the second half of the video will include spoilers, and of course there will be timestamps down below. Begin by my spoiler-free thoughts. This is not an action-based book. If you want an action-based book, you're looking in the wrong direction. If you're looking for a book that is from the perspective of Obi-Wan Kenobi, you are also looking in the wrong place. This book is a book about how the people of Tatooine view Obi-Wan and how he views them. And as a result, a lot of this book is really slow, and it's a lot of discussions between characters. But what makes this book work so well is its perfect handling of all of the tropes and themes regarding Westerns. You have the Western bar, which is the Danar's claim over at the Oasis, which is very much like the bar in Bellicus Angel or in Cheers even. In fact, I actually found a reference to Cheers in the book this time that made me laugh. But this is your typical Western bar that almost a saloon is essentially, and it's the town meeting place. Everybody goes there, and at the same time, you also have the characters who are in there who are basically seeing this outsider come in and reacting to him. You have Annalene Caldwell, who's the owner of Danar's claim. Danar is her husband, or I should say was her husband. And then she has her children. She has Jabe and her daughter. Why am I blanking on her name? Callie. I was going to say Annie. Callie Caldwell. And so her kids work with her. They're teenagers. And then there are the other characters who work in the area. You have Oren Galt and his children, Vika and Mullen, who are basically, Oren's a businessman, and he is trying to make profits at the same time to protect the settlers. And then you have Obi-Wan, who is this outsider who's come to live on Tatooine, and he doesn't really know how Tatooine works, despite having visited before. And so the whole book is about him kind of figuring out his footing, learning about the people, learning about other things. And then you have the Tuskens. The Tuskens are an excellent use of villains in this book, because the Tuskens are a stand-in for, in the Westerns, who would be the villains, like the natives or the rival towns. The Tuskens work because the audience understands why the Tuskens act the way they do. In this book, the Tuskens are fleshed out in such a way that you say, I respect why the Tuskens do this. But you absolutely do not agree with what the Tuskens are doing. And in fact, you realize that what they do is really bad. And so there is a lot of nuance in the discussion about the Tuscans versus the settlers. And at the beginning, you are led to assume that it's just going to be a simple, settlers good, Tuscans bad story. But there's actually quite a bit of nuance in the book. And I think it really is probably the best handling of Tuscans. I know a lot of people, including myself, like that second episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which had very much a Dances with Wolves vibe, and that was a good episode, but I still like the handling of the Tuscans better in this book. And so, and then there are these meditations. There are roughly 10 of them in the book where Obi-Wan is trying to commune with Qui-Gon. And in these meditations, they're very short. They're only like 1 or 2 pages each, roughly. But you get to see Obi-Wan's struggles. You get to see his doubts. You get to see the pain he's going through, feeling that he just killed Anakin, he thinks. You also see him thinking, I have to live my life in the desert for 20 years. He's coming, and he has to be alone. And he realizes that he wants to develop friendships with the settlers, but he's afraid that if he does that, he will cause problems down the road. And so the excellent dynamic of a Jedi who is alone, it's something that John Jackson Miller always does a fantastic job of in all of his books. He does a fantastic job of this in A New Dawn, where Kanan is alone, or Knight Errant, where I forgot her name, Kara Holt is alone, and there are others in his Lost Tribe of the Sith books. So he, and even Zane Carrick in his Knights of the Old Republic comics. Really, really good stuff there. And each book follows the themes of how a Jedi should be when they're alone, what is the purpose of being a Jedi, and this book asks, at what point does Obi-Wan's greater mission of protecting Luke, at what point is that not as necessary than helping the people of Tatooine? Because there's times where Obi-Wan's brought up with the opportunity that he could save everyone on Tatooine that's in this problem, but if he does that, he'll be outed and he may risk losing Luke, who is the hope of the universe. And so there's excellent questions regarding all of that is perfectly explored in this book. Another thing that I really like about this book is the humor. There is a ton of situational humor. Annalene has a lot of humor about her relationships regarding Oren and Obi-Wan in the book. And Oren is constantly making jokes. They're not quite puns, but they're essentially puns, and he just has this vibrant personality that just makes you laugh at him. And then, of course, Obi-Wan actually makes a lot of comments that are for the audience's benefit, not for the character's benefit. And so he'll say something, and we know as the audience, ooh, he's referencing this character, he's referencing this from his life, but they don't know that, and so Obi-Wan has quite a few funny lines. He tries to be as vague as possible in the book, and so I found myself on this reread laughing so much at just the perfect humor, and it's not out of place. I know a lot of people complain about The Last Jedi and how the humor there feels out of place. The humor here is very organic. It is very natural. I would say it's even more natural than, say, the humor in Aaron Alston's books, who Aaron Alston was known for adding a ton of humor in his books, and they worked for me, but there were times where it was a little over the top, and it was like, okay, this is too much, not nudge, wink, wink, type thing. This one, it is very natural to the story. And my final spoiler-free thought, I will say, is that despite how slow the book goes, the climax ramps up very quickly, and it pays off quite a bit of what is promised. You know, my biggest issue with books is you have promises and payoffs. You need to do both. And a lot of authors fail. They give too many promises and not enough payoffs. This book gives all the payoffs that you'd expect from the promises in the beginning of the book. And so I think it is wonderful in that regard. So now I'm going into my spoiler-free or spoiler-filled thoughts. So if you have not read Kenobi, please go read it. and then come back. And because I have some things to talk about. So you have been warned. So everyone dies now. Okay. Spoiler thoughts here. In this book, you see Oren turn out to be the bad guy. And Oren basically has been working to try to undermine the settlers by pretending to be the Tuskens in order to gain power and in order to scare everyone into paying into the settlers' call. And I thought this was a brilliant twist because the first time I read this book, not knowing where it was going, I genuinely thought Oren was a nice guy. I thought, yeah, he makes a few mistakes here and there, but I enjoyed him as a character, and it was so saddening to see his descent. And rereading it this time, of course, I already knew everything that happened to him, but I felt that despair and that sadness of, oh man, he's just on the wrong path. And even Obi-Wan realizes, and Obi-Wan gives him so many opportunities. There's so much redemption in this book. There are at least half a dozen, if not a dozen times where Obi-Wan says, turn back from your path. He says, turn back, you have the opportunity, you can make atonement, and Oren never does it. And eventually Obi-Wan says, all right, I've given you the option. You could atone, you could pay for your crimes, and you could be forgiven by me and the other settlers, but you refuse to turn away. And thus Obi-Wan has to let things play out and let Oren be taken by the Tuskens, which I thought was just a horrific ending and quite funny that he would have to be the one working on the moisture evaporators for them. And the fact that he takes a vow of silence at the end was also kind of funny. And is a good way to say, oh yeah, Oren was there all the time. We just never hear him say anything in English, in basic, I should say. Another fun twist that I enjoyed was realizing that a Yark was actually a woman. She was a female leader of the tribe, not a male leader of the tribe. I'm not sure that if that twist had happened today, in 2022, that it would be as well respected as it was in 2013, but I still think it is such a brilliant twist that I quite enjoyed it. And with that, a Yark leading them and realizing that the Tuskens have to adapt, realizing that their way of life is untenable, and that's why she goes for the moisture evaporators. That's why she's willing to work with Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's why she says maybe this mystical thing, whatever, she doesn't realize it's the Force, maybe we should be utilizing that because we are losing, we are dying, and I think that a Yark was right, and I really enjoyed reading about her character. And boy, is it hard in my discussions of the book not to refer to her as her. Like, I'm just like, oh yeah, oh, Yark did this, oh, Yark did that, and John Jackson Miller does an excellent job of not revealing her identity until about the halfway point when everything's revealed. And so I thought that was just a brilliant twist that happened. Another one of my spoiler-filled thoughts was I loved the fight with the Krayt Dragon at the end. The Krayt Dragon battle in The Mandalorian Season 2 was fantastic. I can't deny it. But it was a different scope. It was a different type of Krayt Dragon battle. This one felt kind of earned because the settlers were using the Krayt Dragon call, and it's kind of funny that they hear the sound and they're like, did someone activate the call? No, that doesn't sound that sounds organic. That doesn't sound like it was from the machines. And then the Krayt Dragon shows up, and it shows that the Tuskens have a legitimate fear because a Krayt Dragon is powerful. This one's obviously not quite as large as a Krayt Dragon from The Mandalorian, but it's still an enormous creature. And even Obi-Wan has a moment of, oh, this is a little bit to deal with. So I enjoyed the whole Krayt Dragon fight towards the end. Also, there were a lot of references and connections in this book that I enjoyed. We got the connections to Sharad Het, who was in a lot of the comics, who had worked with the Tuskens, and this works so well that if you had never read any of those comics, which I actually hadn't until I reread this, you still understand who they're talking about, and you still understand why it's important to the Tuscans. It is seamless tie-ins like that work so well for this book. John Jackson Miller is my favorite media tie-in author, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, because he is so good at making the audience read something for the first time and still enjoy it. And he makes connections without it being too convoluted or anything. His standalone books still have connections. His trilogies still feel standalone, and so he's just great in that regard. Another spoiler-filled thought that I had for this section was Annalene leaving to go to Alderaan. It is such a bittersweet moment because you're happy that she finally gets to live her life, gets to do something beyond just the claim. But at the same time, you as the audience know Alderaan's being blown up, and it makes you wonder, oh, I hope she got out alive. I hope she did. And there's a little... What makes this book work so well is there is a part of you that wants Obi-Wan to join Annalene, that you want them to end up together because they're such a good couple, perhaps. And instead, you know they can't end up together, but there's that little bit of part of you that says maybe they should. And it is so sad when you realize no, they can't, and you just have to let Annalene go. And so just the tragedy of this book is so sad. And I have one negative about the book, despite all those positives, and it's a very small negative. In the final page, the final meditation, Qui-Gon does not show up. And I've had discussions with other friends about this, about maybe Qui-Gon should show up, or maybe shouldn't. I think he absolutely should have showed up right on the final page. He should have just said, Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan says, yes, master. And he says, we have a lot to discuss. And then that would end the book. That would have been a better payoff than this. The ending of the book in and of itself is a little bit melancholy. And it still works well for the book, but I think it would have been more enjoyable and more of a payoff for me to see Qui-Gon actually return after Obi-Wan's been working so hard to try to commune with him again. And so that was my only negative about this book. But other than that, I love this book. In fact, this is the book that I have the most copies of. I have my hardcover. I have a mass market paperback, which I gave away to a friend to read. I also have the audio version done by Jonathan Davis, which he does a terrific job. And most recently, I purchased the German edition, which I hope to read in German very soon. I'm learning German. I'm trying to get better at it, and I've learned something like 600 German words, so I'm not anywhere near ready to read this, but I got this version so I can read it. And so I really like this book. As you can tell, I've got so many copies. By the way, I didn't mention this in my spoiler-free section, but this book did win the Scribe Award in the year was 2014, but it was for the year that it came out, and it was a tough year for the Scribe Awards. It went up against another book that I've reviewed on the channel, which was Dayton Ward's From History's Shadow, which was a terrific book, an absolutely terrific book. By far Dayton Ward's best book. And so I was shocked to see that they went up against each other in the same year. And this is one of only 2 wins for Star Wars. Star Wars has had about, I think, 10 nominations in the last 15 years for the Scribe Awards, but this is one of only 2 wins, and the only win in the adult category. So very impressive work here. So if you've read Kenobi, let me know your thoughts. If you have not read Kenobi, I don't know why you listen to this part, but let me know if you were interested in it. If you've read it, let me know, did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you not? That's understandable. This is not going to be a book for everyone, but let me know everything down in the comments section down below. Please subscribe to the channel. I have many Star Wars book videos coming out, and many that have already come out. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.